Hey all, coming at you straight out of CSN. I'm here in my office in the C building on the Charleston campus, and I'm in a suite of offices, room 269. I'm the only one here. What the hell, man? It's a Friday afternoon. I kind of get it. But COVID has really had kind of a long-term impact, hasn't it, in the American workplace? Certainly the American academic workplace. So I got my door open, I can yell as loudly as I want to, I can play my music, I can blast it. Okay. So, but that's not what I'm here for today. I'm here to talk a little bit about the American Presidency. Right, our next module as we point towards exam number 3. So from here on in, we'll pick up the pace a little bit. Really the first half of the course is kind of the larger issues, almost metaphysical or certainly philosophical, very theoretical in a way. And now we're getting more into the brass tacks, the finer details, where I can move more quickly. So, in case you're wondering how we're going to get through all this by early May, that's kind of my plan. Okay, so the American Presidency. Now, I came across a couple of discussion threads where some students, understandably, and there's a case for it, right, that Trump is seeking to expand presidential powers, but it's a difference in degree and not in kind. Right, that he's pushing a little further than previous presidents, maybe, but it's part of a longer-term trend going back to the end of World War II. Right, Arthur Schlesinger's monumental work from some decades ago, right, the Imperial Presidency. He wrote that in the context of Richard Nixon's presidency. So there's a case for that. There is. But I would argue, and I think the stronger argument, in my view, is that Trump is really exerting an effort to expand presidential powers beyond what we've seen before. You might have to go back to Andrew Jackson's presidency in the 1830s. And I'm no expert on the Jackson presidency, but I know that many historians have argued that the seeds of Trump can be found in the presidency of Andrew Jackson, where he broke a lot of norms, broke a lot of things, acted unilaterally, didn't always follow Supreme Court decisions. So that might be the antecedent to the Trump presidency, but nothing in the modern era. All right, so that's my argument, I guess. This is not a difference just in degree of expanding presidential power. This is a difference in kind. It's a different animal. The degrees are so far beyond what we've seen in recent decades that it's really it's a different thing. Difference in kind, not just in degree. All right. He's moving fast. He's breaking things as quickly as he can. I think he knows a lot of it is not legal, will not ultimately be upheld by the federal courts, but he figures, get as much done as we can. A commentator I heard today, someone who's generally favorable to Trump's agenda, said, the reason he's moving so quickly and trying to break things as much as possible and as quickly as possible is that he knows what's coming, right? A backlash. There's already kind of a building backlash, right? Because even people who voted for him in some cases are saying, wow, he's moving a lot faster and breaking a lot more things than I ever thought he would. As someone said, I didn't have Doge sort of running the government and deconstructing it via Elon Musk. I didn't have that on my political bingo card. It's been a little shocking. Whoa, got some dust in my eye. Sorry about that. I was trimming my backyard tree today. Woo! Sorry about that. I don't want to lose this cut, so see if I can keep going. That he knows what's coming. Number one, right? Pushback from the federal courts. And public opinion is drifting away from Trump a bit. There is some buyer's remorse by some who voted for Trump. I don't want to exaggerate that, because I know some who've said they regret it also say, but I certainly could not have voted for Kamala Harris. So, you kind of have to choose there, right, to a pretty high degree. So, where does that leave us? He knows what's coming. Sorry. I distract myself. My brain works faster than my mouth can possibly move. And what's coming, right? We've seen it already in 2 state legislative elections. Democrats picked up an Iowa legislative seat some weeks back in a red district that they had no concept that they might win. They're like, whoa, how did that happen? Well, right, what do they say now? They used to say, Tip O'Neill, all politics is local. And now I think the adage is all politics is national, right? So a state legislative race in Iowa that normally would have been more about local issues becomes, right, a national referendum on the Trump administration's first 2 months in office. A Democrat sails to victory unexpectedly out of nowhere. Because of that backlash, all politics is national. And then just earlier this week, and this is an area where I went to school at a little Elizabethtown College in central Pennsylvania, just a little bit west of Lancaster, Pennsylvania Dutch, all of that. I definitely got grit in my eye. It is intense. Lancaster County state legislative election, I think a state senate election, heavily red district, and a Democrat won. Again, out of nowhere. And the Democrat's like, what? I won? You sure about that? You want to do a recount? Let's make sure about that. He won, by a very narrow margin, but he won in a district that normally a Democrat wouldn't have a damn chance, where you'd have a hard time finding Democrats willing to run just so they can get run over by the Republican candidate. Right? And Democrats are like, whoa, where did that come from? Well, backlash, right? All politics is national. So we're seeing it already. We have an interesting race coming up next week in Wisconsin, where I taught for many years. It's going to be a state Supreme Court race. And technically it's nonpartisan, but that's bullshit. I think we all know that's bullshit. You have a Democrat running against a Republican. And whichever candidate wins that race, that party will control that court. And they have some very hot-button issues that they decided recently under a Democratic Party majority on the court, and ones they'll be deciding soon. Super hot-button issues like abortion and electoral line drawing. And so, right, Democrats are feeling pretty good about that race. That'll be another sort of gut check. Where are we in terms of the public's response to the Trump presidency early days? Is there enough of a backlash? And I don't know that there will be, but it seems plausible, given what we just saw in Pennsylvania and Iowa, that you could see further evidence of that phenomenon in Wisconsin. Now, I would say a lot of money has poured into that Wisconsin race. Elon Musk's money. Musk is staking a lot on that election. And it's the most expensive state Supreme Court race in the history of America in little old Wisconsin. I think the record before this cycle was actually, 2 years ago, an election in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court, where again the stakes were high. At the time, Republicans controlled the court, and because the Democrat won that election 2 years ago, Democrats now control the court. That attracted like over $50 million. Let me say that again. Over $50 million to a state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. And I think this one is around $60 million. It's insane. Typically, I know that in Nevada this last time, we had 2 state Supreme Court elections. Neither one was even contested. The incumbent ran uncontested. So like no money was spent. Basically no money at all. I don't know that that's ideal, right? You like to see a contested election, but it shows you that Nevada's politics are pretty low key, right? We don't feel like we have an ideologically charged high court. We don't, and we don't feel like each election is life or death, because it's not. Yay, Nevada! Yay, Nevada! We have a pretty de-escalated politics here so far. Knock on wood. But Wisconsin, man, that's become ground zero for these state high court elections, attracting insane national money. So that'll be a very important test for where we're at politically. I'll probably weigh in on that next week after the results come down. So, I still haven't gotten to my point. I'm terrible. I see all the connections. That's the problem with being a political scientist and having done it for so many decades. and having a pretty fast brain is I can see all the connections all at once, and I have to unpack it all as quickly as possible before I forget elements of the arguments that I want to make here. But the argument I want to make in the end, the big unveil here is right, the midterm elections, and I know that's far away. Right, it's not for over a year and a half, but it's going to be a big deal. It's going to be midterm elections in November of 2026. And this is going to be right. All the House seats in Washington, D.C. are going to be up for grabs. About 32 or 33 Senate seats, blah, blah, blah. Right? And for Democrats and for Republicans and for President Trump and Elon Musk and the whole bunch, right, the question is not going to be so much the Senate. It's complicated. I haven't dug into it too much yet myself, but when I looked at it a while back, it was very clear to me in terms of which Senate seats are coming up in 2026. Democrats don't have a damn prayer of winning back seats in the Senate beyond maybe one. Right, and they're currently 3 seats down in the Senate, so winning one back would be good for them, but it's not going to change the balance of power in the Senate. So I think it's highly likely power in the Senate will remain status quo after the November 26 elections. Republicans in control. That's good for President Trump, right? When he submits his nominees to the federal courts or to head up the federal bureaucracy, that's the Senate's job, advice and consent. He'll continue to be in a strong position on that measure. The fly in the ointment for Republicans, and I'm finally getting to my argument after how many minutes here? After almost 12 minutes. Right, it is highly likely. I would put, I'm not a betting person at all, but if I was, I would probably put good money right now on Democrats winning back the House. Right, they're currently only down a few seats in the House. And they only need to win like 3 or 4 elections that they currently don't hold, seats that don't hold, and they'll be back in power in January of 27. Highly likely. Almost every single time in American political history, the party that holds the White House gets punished during the midterm elections, and they surrender seats, typically in both the House and the Senate. And given the current backlash, although we don't know what the landscape's going to look like, right, in November of 26, but absent something really extraordinary, Democrats, the power in the House should just fall into their laps, even if they don't make great choices in terms of candidates or candidate strategy, whatever. Even if they kind of muck it up a bit, it's almost impossible for them not to win back control of the House. I think the average number of seats that swing back to the opposition party in a midterm in the House is like 20 or 30. They only need like 3. Like, it would be very hard for them not to win the House back. Because I don't want to give them too much credit. Right? They're not the most functional party ever. But I think even they can't mess this up. It'd be very hard. Very hard. Right, so in other words, tick-tock, right? Tick-tock on Trump breaking things and getting things done quickly. That's a reason for the speed, right? Because the sense is it's pretty likely that Democrats will control the House in January of 27. And that's going to be a different situation entirely for the Trump White House, right? Then Democrats will be in a position to exert substantial checks and balances that we're currently not seeing. So I think they feel like they're on a pretty short clock, and hence the alacrity with which they are pursuing sort of breaking things. They're trying to break them beyond repair so they can't be put back together again very easily. Right? Like you fire a bunch of people, you fire 50,000 people, right? It takes a while, even if you want to or can, to hire them back. So they're trying to break as many things and break them as much as possible, as quickly as possible, with the recognition that there might be a little bit of a time limitation on these behaviors. Soon enough, it seems likely the House will be back under opposition party control, and then life's going to get a whole lot more difficult. Okay, so yeah, but what we are seeing from the Trump presidency, and I told some of my students on the ground, I said, some of y'all seem to be suggesting that Trump is merely doing what recent presidents have done, which is to aggrandize additional power in the executive branch. And I was like, if you told that to Trump to his face, I think he would be insulted, right? He would go, no, what I'm doing is really different. That's his brand, right? I'm sort of charting a new course here, maybe even a new understanding of the U.S. Constitution that centers a great deal more power in the executive branch. I think he would be insulted if supporters told him, oh, you're only doing a little bit more than Biden did. He'd be like, what? That bullshit. I'm doing a lot more. Well, he is. Give him credit. He's trying to be transformational here. So I would say don't miss that. That's the elephant in the room here. It's a pretty big elephant. This is in some ways, right, an effort to be a transformational president. So give him his due. This is an effort at radical restructuring of the U.S. Constitution and our democratic way of life. Where it's all going to come out, I have no damn idea. I don't have a crystal ball regarding the future. But I do think they're working on a relatively short timeline. And they feel like time pressure to move as big and as quickly as possible, given that they anticipate, as we're currently seeing in these state legislative elections, we'll see in Wisconsin, right? They're starting to see already a building political backlash, which is pretty normal, super normal in American politics, right? When one party sort of gets all the power, right, they tend to take it, maybe too far. maybe they take it too far, right? Because they don't have checks and balances, so they tend to press boundaries. And I've suggested, right, that Trump is pressing boundaries with almost reckless abandon, in a way that's unique as far as I can tell, unless maybe you go back to Andrew Jackson's presidency. Yeah, I think we should think of it in that way. Seems to me as a political scientist. And there's a concern that with growing backlash, there'll be more and more guardrails put up over time. So until that time, let's get as much done as quickly as possible, in as big a way as possible, to leave a mark that's going to be hard to erase in the future. All right. Thanks all.